Good evening, everyone. Today we are back with another lecture, which is the continuation of the previous one. And today we'll be discussing about concept of ideology. So let's start. In political science, ideology is a set of values, beliefs, and ideas that explain how society should work and how to achieve that arrangement. Now, what is the actual explanation of that? We can say a political ideology explains how society should work, including the economy, the government, education, and more. Blueprint: a political ideology offers a blueprint for a certain social order, and it has goals for how society should work, and also it has methods for achieving those goals. Political ideologies compete with each other to justify, explain, contest, or change social and political arrangements. Political ideologies can be powerful forms of national and individual identity and can be used to manipulate people. Some common political ideologies are liberalism and conservatism. The term ideology was first used in French during the French Revolution by A.L.C. Destutt de Tracy. However, the study of ideology may have originated with Francis Bacon, who investigated preconceptions and prejudices that impede the scientific method. Now, ideology as a set of ideas. A political ideology is a set of ideas, beliefs, values, and opinions exhibiting a recurring pattern that competes deliberately as well as unintentionally over providing plans of action for public policy making in an attempt to justify, explain, contest, or change the social and political arrangement and processes of a political community. Some examples of political ideologies include liberalism and socialism. Now, what is liberalism? Liberalism is a theory which focuses on individuality, or we can call it individualism, and self-reliance, personal responsibility, equality before the law, and limited government. Socialism, on the other hand, involves the government owning a large share of a society's resources and providing social services to its citizens. Now we come to the next topic, that is obscurantism. Obscurantism is, you can say, restricting of education and knowledge by the ruling class. It is anti-democratic in its components of anti-intellectualism and social elitism. You can say this was used, or this has always been used by the elites so that they can deprive the actual knowledge from the public, which exclude the majority of the people deemed unworthy of knowing the facts about their government and political and economic affairs of their city-state. Here are some examples of obscurantism in politics. Now, the very first is the French Revolution. In the 18th century France, the aristocracy's obscurantism about social problems contributed to the French Revolution. The political scientist Marcus de Condorcet documented this obscurantism. Obscurantist governance. This is a type of governance where the government hides incompetence by obscuring reality. So they are not telling you the actual truth about their government, about their party, of how the things are going on in your country. So they don't want you to be aware of all those social and political issues that are going around. For example, a government might resort to obscurantist governance if it can't deliver satisfactory performance. and this is something which has been going on for a huge amount of time, or you can say this has been going on for a long period of time. Many governments, many central governments of many countries have been doing it all this time. Obscurantism can also be found in other areas such as religious obscurantism, mysticism and obscurantism, literature and art. Obscurantism can be a style characterized by deliberate vagueness or abstruseness. Now, ideology as the science of ideas. The term ideology was originally coined by French philosopher Claude Destutt de Tracy as a science of ideas to describe the study of ideas and their origins. However, the meaning of the word has changed over time, and today it is more commonly used to refer to the ideas themselves rather than the science of ideas. Here are some details about the history of the term ideology. Origin. Destutt de Tracy introduced the term in the 18th century during the French Revolution. He believed that ideas were the result of forces in the material environment that shaped what people thought. He also thought that understanding the source of ideas could lead to progress for humanity. Meaning. The term has since taken on a negative connotation, especially due to the work of Karl Marx. Marx believed that ideologies were used to defend political structures and that they generated a false consciousness about the world. Now, used today. Today, the term ideology is generally used to refer to a set of ideas and beliefs held by a particular group or political party. Ideologies can be centered around issues like equality, freedom, justice, and property. They can have both positive and negative consequences and can influence how people perceive and interact with others. Now, what was the ideology of Karl Marx? That we will discuss right now. Karl Marx. First of all, let's discuss about Karl Marx, who he was. So, he lived in the 19th century from 1818 to 1883. He was a philosopher, an author, a social theorist, and an economist. He is famous for his theories about capitalism, socialism, and communism. Marx, in conjunction with Friedrich Engels, published the Communist Manifesto in 1848, which is one of the very popular books of, you can say, Europe. Karl Marx's ideology, known as Marxism, is a social theory that examines the history of humanity and proposes a new system of shared ownership of the means of production. Class struggle. Marxism views society as characterized by a struggle between the bourgeoisie, who owns the means of production, and the proletariat, who are the working class. So, these terms and their meanings are important. Economic factors. Marxism emphasizes the importance of economic factors in shaping human actions and behavior. Materialist theory of history. Marxism asserts that the way people produce the necessities of life determines the form of societies in which they live. Critique of capitalism. Marx believed that capitalism alienates the masses, means the public, and that the capitalistic system would inevitably destroy itself. Communism. Marx believed that a classless society should be achieved through communism, where people would work to produce whatever they could and share this with everyone else. Marxism also includes theories on the role of labor in human communities, social change determined by economic factors, and the reflection of material conditions in human consciousness. Now we come to the views of George Lucas on ideology and modernism. Now, Lucas believed that ideology is a projection of the bourgeoisie class consciousness and that it prevents the proletariat from realizing its revolutionary position. He also believed that ideology determines the structure of knowledge and the form of objectivity. Now, modernism. Lucas believed that modernism leads to the destruction of literary forms and a move away from village culture. He believed that people no longer read or recite traditional poetic text, but that the need for poetry persists. Ethics. Lucas believed in an consequentialist and anti-deontological ethics of pure action. He believed that the soul of a good person is a pure white slate upon which the fate writes its absurd command. He believed that people can empty themselves of the psychological content of everyday life by sacrificing themselves for the sake of works. Social utopia. Lucas believed that by overcoming the alienated world of mechanical forces through works that transform life, people can recover a genuine community with others. Now we come to the views of Karl Mannheim. Okay. Karl Mannheim, born on March 27, 1893, Budapest, Austria-Hungary, now in Hungary, died on January 9, 1947, London, England, was a sociologist in Germany before the rise of Adolf Hitler, and then in the United Kingdom, who is remembered for his sociology of knowledge and for his work of the problems of leadership and consensus in modern societies. He had many views on a variety of topics, including number 1, sociology of knowledge. Mannheim believed that all knowledge and ideas are shaped by a person's social position and historical context, which in a way is a very logical statement. He believed that the sociology of knowledge could help to introduce reason into politics by showing how social conditions influence ideologies, political philosophies, and cultural achievements. It's a very true saying that whatever you see, whatever you say, or whatever you hear are someday or the other, or you can say in some way or the other, they will affect you or they will carve out who you are. Okay. Now, ideology and utopia. Mannheim believed that there is no objective standpoint above those of different social groups. He distinguished between total ideologies which are adapted to past circumstances and utopias which are directed towards the future. Social conflict. Mannheim believed that social conflict is caused by the diversity of ideas and beliefs among different segments of society. He believed that conflicting intellectual positions can supplement one another if the one-sidedness of each viewpoint is counteracted. Fascism. Mannheim believed that fascism highlighted what was wrong with liberal democracy or liberalism, but also indicated how its problems could be solved. Relationism. Mannheim believed that ideas and beliefs are rooted in larger thought systems which he called relationism. He believed that people need to be aware of the situationally determined knowledge and viewpoints. Mannheim was influenced by the work of Karl Marx and Weber. His work is considered to be important because it calls into action the stereotype confrontation between modern and postmodern. Utopia. In political science, utopia is an imagined ideal society that is a key part of political theory. It involves criticizing the current society and proposing ways to improve it. Now, what is the term utopia? The term utopia was coined by Sir Thomas More for his 1516 book Utopia, which describes a fictional island society in the New World. In the book, More describes a communist city state governed by reason and contrast it with the unreasonable polity of Christian Europe. Utopian societies are characterized by near perfect qualities for their members, such as quality in economics, government, and justice. However, no utopian society has ever existed. The opposite of a utopia is dystopia, which is a society marked by fear, oppression, and poverty. Utopianism can inspire and be inspired by reality based fields and concepts, such as architecture, social networks, and universal basic income. However, utopia is not a blueprint for social engineering, which can have totalitarian and authoritarian consequences. Totalitarianism is a political. Now we have come to the next ism, that is totalitarianism, and it is also a political system, and you can say it is a form of government that prohibits opposition political parties, disregards and outlaws the political claims of individual and group opposition to the state, and controls the public sphere and private sphere of the society. So this definition is very important. Totalitarianism, utopianism, all these are very important. Open society. Now, what is an open society? What is an open society? An open society is a society where individuals are free to make their own decisions and where values like individual freedom, humanitarian ethics, and rationality are upheld. Karl Popper, a political philosopher, defined an open society in his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies. So, this book is also quite renowned in the field of political science. Popper believed that democracy was the only institutional mechanism that could provide for reform and leadership change without the need for revolution, bloodshed, or a coup d'etat. He also believed that an open society should take action against intolerant belief systems when necessary. In an open society, different social groups are allowed to compete for resources, and individuals can change their roles and status. This is different from closed society where social groups cooperate in a hierarchical manner. So this hierarchy is not there in the open society. It is there in the opposite of that, which is the closed society. So this is one major difference between open society and closed society. Liberalism again. Liberalism is a political and moral philosophy based on the rights of individual liberty, consent of the governed, political equality, right to private property, and equality before the law. So, this ism is also quite important. Now, what is an authoritarian state? Very important question. What is this? An authoritarian state is a political system, again, in which power is concentrated in the hands of a single leader or a small elite group. With limited political pluralism, little regard for democratic processes, and restricted civil liberties. Here are the key features of an authoritarian state. Number one is the concentration of power. Power is centralized in the hands of a single ruler, often called as a dictator, or a small group such as a political elite, military junta, or a ruling party. Decision making authority is often not subject to legal or institutional checks and balances, allowing the leadership to govern without significant opposition or accountability. Now, the next thing, limited political pluralism. Opposite parties and groups are either banned, suppressed, or heavily controlled, and political competition is thus limited or non existent. There are few, if any, avenues for the general population to influence government decisions through free elections, political parties, or civil society organizations. Elections, if they exist, are often a formality and are controlled to ensure the ruling group remains in power. Number three, suppression of civil liberties. Freedom of speech, press, assembly, and association are severely restricted or completely denied. Independent media may be censored, and journalists critical of the government are often silenced. Citizens are discouraged from expressing dissent or participating in political activities that challenge the regime. Human rights abuses such as arbitrary arrest, detention without trial, and torture are common tools used to stifle dissent and opposition. Control over information and media. Now, the state exercises significant control over information, including the press, internet, and social media. This control is used to shape public opinion and reinforce the regime's legitimacy. Propaganda is often employed to glorify the leadership and discredit political opposition. In many authoritarian states, the media serves as a mouthpiece for the regime, spreading its narrative and limiting the dissemination of alternative views. Number fifth, weak or non existent rule of law. The legal system is often subservient to the ruling group, and laws are applied arbitrarily to suppress opposition or consolidate power. Judicial independence is minimal or non existent. Courts and judges may be co opted by the regime and used as instruments of political repression. The rule of law is applied selectively, with government officials and supporters often being above the law, or you can say they are immune to the law, while opponents face harsh punishments. Number 6, lack of democratic accountability. The leadership is not accountable to the public or democratic institutions. There are few mechanisms such as free elections or independent institutions to check the power of the rulers. Public participation. Public participation in political decision making is minimal, and citizens have little or no influence over policy choices or governance. So, you can say, in a way, it is anti democratic, because in a democracy we get the right to choose our representatives, we get the right to vote, but over here the citizens are having very little or no influence over the policy choices or the governance. Transparency in government actions and decision making is lacking, with important policies often decided behind closed doors. Use of coercion and repression. Point number 7. Coercion is a key feature of authoritarian regimes, with the state using the military, police, and intelligence agencies to enforce compliance with suppress opposition. Surveillance is widespread, just like China. You have CCTV cameras everywhere, with the government monitoring the activities of political opponents, activists, and ordinary citizens. Political opponents, dissidents, and activists are often harassed, imprisoned, or even killed to maintain control. Number 8. Cult of personality. This is all a game of personality. If you like the person, even if that person is doing wrong, the supporters, in a way, they still support that person. In many authoritarian states, the leader or ruling elite develops a cult of personality around themselves, portraying them as infallible or indispensable to the nation's survival. The state controlled media and propaganda machinery create a glorified image of the leader, often promoting their leadership as a solution to all national problems. Number 9. Manipulation or control of elections. Elections, if they occur, are often manipulated to ensure the ruling regime remains in power. This can include rigging the vote, restricting opposition candidates, intimidating voters, or disqualifying opposition parties. In some cases, elections are used as a tool to legitimize authoritarian rule, giving the appearance of democratic processes while maintaining tight control over the outcome. Number 10. Economic control. The government typically exerts significant control over the economy, either directly or indirectly, to maintain its power. In many authoritarian regimes, the ruling elite benefits from corruption, patronage, and the exploitation of national resources, using economic power to buy loyalty and suppress opposition. Economic inequality is often exacerbated, with resources concentrated in the hands of the ruling elite and the supporters, while the general population has limited access to wealth and opportunities. Number 11. Nationalism and ideological justification. Authoritarian regimes often appeal to nationalism, ethnic identity, or a particular ideology to justify their rule. They may claim to be protecting the nation from external enemies, internal threats, or chaos, positioning themselves as the only force capable of maintaining stability and national unity. Ideological indoctrination may be promoted through education and media, reinforcing the regime's worldview and suppressing alternative ideologies. Number 12. Resistance to change. Authoritarian regimes are generally resistant to political or social change that threatens their grip on power. They often suppress demands for democratic reforms, whether through force, manipulation, or discrediting reformist movements. Even when faced with significant internal pressure or external influence, authoritarian states often focus on preserving the status quo rather than implementing meaningful reforms. Now, the conclusion is that an authoritarian state is characterized by the concentration of power in the hands of a ruling elite, the suppression of political freedom, and a lack of accountability. These features enable authoritarian regimes to maintain control over the citizens, limit political opposition, and resist democratic processes while often using coercion, propaganda, and repression to retain their grip on power. Now, what is a welfare state? A welfare state is a political system, again, where the government is responsible for the economic and social well being of its citizens. A welfare state aims to protect citizens from market risk, reduce poverty, and ensure the citizens' basic needs are met. So, by the name itself, you can actually understand they are looking forward to working for the people, because a welfare state has the word welfare in it, and welfare means that you are doing good for the people, especially. Welfare states are based on principles of equal opportunity, equitable distribution of wealth, and public responsibility for citizens who are unable to help themselves. Examples: social security, unemployment insurance, and welfare payments are all examples of welfare state programs. Criticism: the term welfare state is sometimes used in a derogatory way to describe a situation where the government creates incentives for people to access welfare benefits. The welfare state was a major focus of domestic politics in most Western states during the first half of the 20th century. So, by this we have ended today's lecture. Hope you have enjoyed the video. Stay tuned for the next one.